Awesome. So we're making the instant Gimlet. So this is something that my GM and I collaborated on this cocktail. We wanted to find a way to take instant ramen flavors and like umami and smash it into a gin gimlet. And a gimlet is what makes it a gimlet is that it's made with a lime cordial. That was key for us to make this sweet and sour cordial that we use a full ounce and a quarter of. And so this is like an umami packed sweet and sour, fresh lime juice, agave, galangal, which is like a Southeast Asian, like ginger type vegetable, and then fresh ginger, lemongrass, so tons of flavor. And then we cook it to make it into this thicker cordial. And then we have the People's Gin that we infuse with seaweed and bonito, or like smoked shaved tuna. So this does have a fish product in it, which is pretty sweet, actually. And this has been crushing it ever since we added it. You know, we're stoked on it. It tastes awesome. It has this sweet, sour, salty balance. And then we garnish it with a lime that has togarashi on it, which keeps like the heat builds as you drink it. Yeah. And it has that little bit of toasted sesame. And this drink is just the 2 ingredients. Another reason that like we're really stoked on it and really taking huge flavors and lots of ingredients and smashing it together. This has gin, it has Madeira in it as well for a lot of depth. It also has a little bit of aged gin made in Chicago from Koval. And then we're going to shake this guy. I'm just going to get it real nice and foamy. And the key to shaking that is to really wake it up. And so if you have a cocktail that's not foamy and doesn't have tight bubbles and it's a shaken cocktail, it was probably not shaken very correctly.
And of course, the decorative glasses.
Oh yeah, no, we swag it out at Yellowbelly.
Yeah, that was
this
like
is about
presented
fun.
by Yellowbelly.
This is about fun, you know. It's like you go out to eat and you're having this experience. It should be fun.
Yeah, it is. And that's one thing I noticed about both your restaurants is the fun that you have, like with the glasses and the way that your staff is dressed, and just, it's just a vibe.
It's a vibe. It's a brand. You know, it's something that the staff connects with. You know, and just makes you feel like you're not just at any other restaurant.
Wherever. That smells so good. Can you smell
this is for you guys.
Let's try
it. It smells so good.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Instant Gimlet.
Oh, thank you.
Made in an instant.
All right. Cheers, St. Louis. We have our cocktails today from Tim Wiggins. Thanks again, guys, for tuning into another episode of the STL Bucket List Show, which is recorded right here at Half Coast Studios. I am your host, Marissa Farrell.
And I'm your other host, Lucas Farrell. And we couldn't have this podcast without the support from you guys and also the Regional Arts Commission of St. Louis. They're the largest public funder of arts and art programs in the city. And if you guys didn't know, St. Louis has more people travel into the city for art programs than sports. So in all reality, St. Louis is an arts town. And we just really want to showcase that on a higher level. But as I'm sipping these amazing cocktails, shout out to People's Gin for supplying a little bit of product for us. And one of our favorite restaurants when we first moved to South City was Yellowbelly. And we got to meet Tim shortly after that at Lazy Tiger, and we seen you at Retreat. So we've been to all your places, and we've drank a lot at your places. We've ate a lot. And we're just thankful for you. We're just thankful for you coming on. So thank you for making the time for us and your busy schedule to make it on the podcast.
I'm stoked to be here. I really appreciate you guys.
Oh my gosh, it's so exciting because I feel like, again, like every time we go to one of your spots, you're there. We always see you. You always making a point to come out and say hey to us. Yeah. So this is cool just to have you on and get to know you a little bit more on a personal level.
Yes. So many of my people that I know are on I'm standing while they're sitting like basis. So it's nice to hang out with people and sit and have, a conversation that's not about the meal you're having.
How's the food today? Exactly.
Real quick, like small conversations with lots of different people every day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Small talk. So
we're going to start it off by just, getting to know a little bit about you and your upbringing. Dare I even say, like, where'd you go to high school, that kind of stuff. But, you're a mixologist, you're a business owner, entrepreneur, family man. We were talking earlier today about your son, how he's almost 4. And so just tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, well, I grew up in Webster. That's where I went to high school. Lots of love for Webster. I grew up with my mom and two brothers. I kind of always had a fairly like entrepreneurial spirit. I was super creative. I remember in sixth grade, there was a Project Plus was like what you got into if you had certain grades and you didn't have any like demerits against you. And so I created Project Minus and I invited a group of friends into it. I made us own cards and we were the like, the opposite of Project Plus. And I had a kid go and return his Project Plus card so that he could have a Project Minus card. And that's when the school was like, skirt, like, hey.
You
like,
can't be doing this.
And I was like, so it's just the beginning of me being like, how do I create something? And, it was just fun.
Yeah.
And so, I went to 2 years at Merrimack, which I loved, actually. I have strong connections with a few of the professors there. I mean, I strongly encourage people in general, if you don't know exactly what you want to do, which you don't, by the way.
No.
Doing 2 years at a community college and working and really just getting those gen eds out of the way and like treating it, taking it seriously was like the smartest thing I could have done. So so I got done with that and I was like, man, I'm moving to Chicago. I'm doing advertising communications. I had all my classes picked out. I was going to Columbia, Chicago. I was like bags packed, ready to go. And financial aid called me and was like, yo, something didn't work. This fell through. You owe us 7 times what we thought it was going to be, but it's all good. Like, just come next year. Like, and it'll be fine. And so it was just like whole life slammed on the brakes, freaking out. What are you going to do? So I went to New Zealand for 3 months and I was like, you know what? I'm getting out. I lived and hung out on the beach and jumped in the river and played music up and down North Island in New Zealand, fell in love with the sunshine and waves and, pretty subtropical climate and then flew back like right before Christmas into like the ice cold St. Louis and was like, oh man, I need to carry on this like sunshine and like kind of not carefree, but just a lot more relaxed style of life. And so I had like $300 in my account in New Zealand, was coming back 2 days later. And my homies were like, we're going bungee jumping. Like, it's $212. And I was like, yeah, dude, like, why not? And so spent basically my last bit of money on bungee jumping in Rotorua and 100% worth it. So like came back to the States with like not enough money to put gas in my car to go downtown to ask for a job. Basically just enough. So drove downtown and was like, just going into cafes. I thought I wanted to open a coffee shop. I was super into coffee. I was super into tasting coffee. And I was 20, I just turned 21 and that's what I wanted to do. And so I went into a coffee shop / cafe and said, will you hire me? And she was like, no, but that place down the street is in our group and they'll probably hire you. So my business partner now, the GM, like interviewed me and was like, hey, are you crazy? And I'm like, I don't think so. And he's like, you're working like now, like clock in. So now you work here, which is great.
Yeah.
So
I need money.
Yeah, so I worked, like, I was working overtime there, like the first week it started, and I was like, schedule me whenever, any position. And they were like, even like ice cream scooper. And I was like, I don't care. Yeah. And so they were like, well, no one wants to do this job. And I was like, whatever you need, clock me in. I'll do it. I'll do it as the best I can. Turns out the job sucked.
That's why no one wanted to do it.
And I took it as a challenge. I was like, I'm going to be the best damn ice cream scooper. And then my forearms are like swollen and my hands hurt.
Some tough ass ice cream.
I got carpal tunnel at 21.
It's like rock solid chocolate ice cream. There's a 6-year-old just like waiting for it. You're like, dude, just calm down, kid. Like, I'm like shaking here. That was actually probably the most difficult job I've ever done, was trying to scoop ice cream at Bailey's Range. It was wild. So from there, the owner of the company was like, hey, will you come and open this whiskey bar, this vegetarian whiskey bar I want to do? And I was 21. I was like, yeah, dude, whatever, sounds fun. I really didn't know anything about anything. I knew that I would work 75 hours a week for like 30 grand. So I think that was why I was an attractive candidate. And I was just like, give me autonomy, give me something I can be in charge of and in control of. And like, I just want to take it somewhere. And so I did. I worked there. I met my wife there. I still have some of the closest friends in my life there. I loved that experience. And so while I was there, they were like, well, there's these 120 whiskeys in this bar program. We need someone to run it and do it. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I was like super into beer, super into coffee. Honestly, spirits were just not really my thing. I didn't really have much knowledge. I didn't really care. Like, I didn't want to bartend. I was like, I want to serve. I want to make lots of money. I want to get out of here. Mm-hmm. Industry is not like, this industry isn't like a career for me. This is just how I'm going to make money until I can figure out how to open my coffee shop. And then I just completely fell in love with cocktails and Amari and whiskey and gin. And I had autonomy to order basically whatever to make cocktails. I just tasted so many things by themselves, then with this, and just built my palate up. And I didn't even realize at the time I was doing that. Mm-hmm. I just was like, wow, I'm here all the time. Right. And I want this to be great. And so I was just reading like at least a couple books a week, Death and Co book, just like changed my mind completely. I feel like that was like the book that I was, comparing everything to, and was like, I'm going to take all this philosophy and just like stuff it into this spot. And because it was new and because I don't want to say no one cared, but like I didn't have, systems and cocktail menus to like change. It was new. Right. So I had the opportunity to really start pushing a pretty cool program. And so my now business partner who was at the other restaurant was like, hey, I've got a little bit of money to open a restaurant. Will you do it? And honestly, I was like, whatever, bro. Like, yeah,
you were just down for the ride.
I was like, dude, that sounds fun. Mm-hmm. And in my mind, I'm like, 10% chance that happens. If you do, let me know. Mm-hmm. And so it started getting more real and more real. And I mean, it was a tough journey to open Retreat. Like it was rough. It was,
and that was, what was that, 8 years?
That was 7 years ago.
7 years. Okay.
I mean, we signed the lease over 8 years ago, but it was like, we thought we were going to open 6 to 7 months before we did.
That was 2015.
2015. Yep.
And how old were you at that time?
I was 23.
Oh, wow. So, okay, I'm going to backtrack a smidge. Yeah. So, like, your kind of world is pulled out from underneath you because, your tuition is messed up. And so what, like, led you to go to New Zealand?
I had to get out of what I was doing. I knew I needed to get out. I knew I wanted something fun and just, like, so different than what I currently had. And so New Zealand was this place that, I don't know, it was just always in the back of my mind. I wanted to go there. And so I found a way to get there and had just enough money to do it. And it was definitely like, all right, you're leaving in 2 weeks. Like, you're just doing it. I didn't really have a fully cooked out plan.
Yeah. But that's kind of the best sometimes. And you're young and it's like you have nothing. I mean, your family was here, but you're a kid at that point. You're like, totally. Nothing's got me grounded to stay here.
I had nothing to lose. It was, and I look back on that and like, it was so formative. Like it gave me so much perspective, because I was just grinding and this is what I think I want to do. And then you do it and you don't have time to just step away. Mm-hmm. And it was my first experience out of the States and got so much perspective on America. And, I was living with, Kiwis and this people from Sweden and lots of people from Canada. And like, I showed up as this like, yo, America, fuck Midwest. This like, we're the best.
Sure. Midwestern kid.
And just like this shock of people being like, yeah, you are American, aren't you? Like, you think you're so tight. And me being like, oh man, like everyone doesn't just think we're the best.
You're like, I'm not shit over here.
No,
like,
and it was such a good adjustment and a reality check on like, look, there are bigger things that you don't even know about. There are people everywhere that have all these different ways of thinking, all these different ways of living. And like, maybe you should just like respect and observe and learn some things. And so, yeah, I feel like it was this like, let's do this random thing. Maybe it works out. And now looking back on it was like the best thing I could have possibly done.
That's amazing.
You've had that entrepreneurial spirit. So like when you went there, you came back, you went straight to work. So like, what was the moment that you decided like, I'm not going back to school?
Yeah.
Was there another like realization, or were you just working and making some money and you're finally like, oh, like I'm making some money, I'm getting promoted, I'm opening up new restaurants. And then it was just, now it's 3 years later, you're 23 years old.
Like, did you want to go back? Like when they're like, oh, maybe next year, you're like, okay, yes, I'll see you next year.
And a lot of me was like,
Forget
you then. Like, okay, if you don't want me, I want you.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that was a lot of, I don't know, probably some like past baggage in my life of like, oh, you're rejecting me. Like, see if I ever go to school again.
They're like, no, bro, like you can come back next year. Like, it's cool. It's chill.
But I feel like being in New Zealand, I had the time to be like, do you want to put on a suit and go to a high rise in Chicago and be an advertising executive? Or do you just not have any other options? You know, what would you do if you really wanted to do it? Mm-hmm. And at that time, I was like, man, I want to open a coffee shop. I want to create a brand. I want to have a product and find a way to make people happy through it and just be able to live, you know? And I didn't realize at the time that coffee wasn't going to be my medium, but that was like, I was dead set on that. So when I got back, I was like, I need to work in a cafe so I can start learning how to actually do this, because I just know I like coffee. You know, I don't know how to operate a business.
How do you take your coffee?
Just black. Although an
way.
oat milk latte is the bomb. I've been on some oat milk latte for a while now, and like 90% of the time, just like a black pour over. I've got this fancy like pour over machine that I'm very into.
Nice.
But also, occasionally oat milk latte makes me very happy.
I had one, so I'm a black coffee when it's warm. Now when it's iced, I want like, so I had one at Need the other day.
Yeah.
Need Bakery had like this iced black. It was black. They added the oat milk and then they put like a little vanilla in there. And I was like, dude, that was fire.
Good. I tried it. I used to drink coffee a lot whenever I was in high school, which is so I know, it's very strange. And I remember, because I also went to St. Charles Community College. I did my 2 years there, and I loved it. And I remember my dad made me coffee one morning. It was like winter, and he's like, I made you coffee. I don't know what you put in it, so I just left, you can do whatever. And I was running late. And I drank it, and it was black. And I was like, this is game changing. It like fueled my soul. But then like the older I got, I started getting so anxious like with coffee. And so now somehow I make it through an entire school day with no coffee. Like I don't. Good
for you.
I just drink water. But right now I'm into matchas a lot.
Okay.
I think matchas are pretty good.
Matcha.
Yeah. So that's my
matchas
thing
are
right
good
now.
with the almond milk.
I do love some black tea. Like, and that was, I mean, really in New Zealand, they were just like drip coffee is like not something anyone gets in New Zealand. Like coffee is espresso and dark, rich, thick, like oily, super
smaller
bitter.
servings.
Yeah. So it's like a flat white or like you're drinking espresso. And so I was making coffee in a pour over and they were like, you're the weirdest American.
Again, the American.
Like, who are you and why are you making this coffee? And they were like, it's tea. Like, we have tea. And so I learned to love tea. And that's been the only thing. There's certain black teas that can replace coffee for me. But my mom and I, what we would do is every weekend when I was in high school, is we would go to a coffee shop in the city. So we live in Webster. We'd go into a different cafe or coffee shop. And that was like what we did to bond. And we happened upon this place called Sump that had just opened. And we met Scott, and I remember just being like, whoa, this place is like transformative. And his focus and vision for his product is like inspiring, you know, like this guy is like cutting no corners. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I want to do. I'm going to, really change the perception of what coffee is for a lot of people. And those were the days where like no sugar was allowed. He wouldn't make you an Americano. It was like, this is what we're doing, like it or don't.
Right. And his branding, and you could take like that branding of like his graphics and like the way his store looked and the aesthetics, and you're like, yo, this is like what
I love it.
And you take, and like in your restaurants, like the aesthetics, the vibe, like you create an experience and then the product just comes in after. And the product's amazing as well, but like it's when they first walk in,
right,
how they feel.
Yeah. So that was, that was like so inspirational to me. And then it kind of turned into okay, now I'm working in this restaurant. School is just like, I don't want to do it anymore, but now I need to figure out how I do my own thing. And then I started, like, really was forced into the bar at Small Batch and was like, you're doing this. It's really the only thing you have time for. You do it at least 70 hours a week. If you're not there, you're reading about it or you're getting dressed to go there. And so I kind of just, fell in love with it and was like, well, I know how to do this thing. I think I know what I'm doing. I know enough that, like, the scene in St. Louis wasn't that strong with cocktails at that time, honestly. There were a couple places, it was like Taste, and then like Planter's House was opening, but like that was pretty much, outside of a couple places where most people were getting their cocktails. And so I saw, my wife and I were going to Taste a lot because we lived, close. And it was like, okay, well, let's make this happen at Retreat. Full while, like, I thought there was no way it would work, honestly. Like, I didn't think Retreat was going to open, like, 2 days before it opened.
Really?
It was, like, so difficult. There was just, like, negative dollars in the account. We didn't have silverware. We had all these staff we'd hired, and we were in opens. We're paying people. It was just, like, mad stressful.
I could not imagine.
And it all turned out to be great.
So what was that like? So, like, you started Retreat. You're 23 years old. So, like, you probably, like, I'm just assuming this, but you don't have, like, a huge grasp on, like, paying employees, like, buying all this stuff. I mean, but you were in the bar, so
The
you knew
paperwork
about that.
side.
So it was awesome because my business partner Travis was, like, his background is finance and his business, and so neither of us really had a clue, but he had a really good grasp on, like, okay, I think we do these things, and I think this is how we make sure we don't run out of money, and it was this great partnership because he's like, I want to focus on these things, but, like, at the same time, we were both, but mainly me, was like, okay, you're in charge of all the creativity, you're in charge of the menus, you're in charge of the staff, and all these things that were, like, I don't know, I had been a manager of a space that was totally different than Retreat, and was now hiring people older than me that I'm training and in charge of. And it was a huge learning experience, and, like, what we had was, we were like, look, we're professional people that have disliked how restaurants have operated and lacked professionalism. And so we were like, we're going to run this like a real business, and we're going to treat people like this, and we're going to have these standards. And even if we are fumbling through figuring out how to make this smooth, like, we know that, this is the culture. And I think that's what ultimately is why 7 years later, Retreat is what it is because we were the managers. We had one other manager that we knew and trusted, but, like, one of us was there every minute, pretty much it was open. And so I look back on it and, like, that's why Retreat is what it is. And the thing that we did have was, like, the integrity and just, like, the professionalism.
Yeah.
So which one of you guys is like the food? Because your food's incredible. So, like, when Retreat opened, like, you had a grasp on the cocktails. Like, you probably, those cocktails probably hit, like, right when you guys opened. And like you said, before that moment, you have, like, Taste in the Central West End. You guys are technically Central West End, but you're, like, closer, like, farther over there. But like, so the cocktails were on lock, but, like, what was the food like being in that?
So we had a chef, Mike, who was awesome. So this guy that Travis knew, he was super talented. He's great. And so when we opened, it was like, Mike's gonna do the food, I'm gonna do the beverage in the front of house. Travis is managing the money and, like, helping with a bit of everything, you know? And so we had this team, and, like, it worked, it was a situation where we had the right people, the right space. I mean, no one wanted that space. It sat for almost 4 years vacant after 6 North Coffee left. We walked through it, and honestly, Travis was the one that he's like, this is the spot. Like, this is going to be the spot. This area isn't really anything. And the Scottish Arms is, like, here, and the block was there, but, like, it wasn't a nice area necessarily. And, like, the evolution of that neighborhood is just, like, exploded, and there's all those different condos going up. So Travis was the one that was like, this is the spot. we need to be here, you know, and he was right. You know, that area is grown so much. But Mike and Grant were the two chef and sous chef who were responsible for the food. And, you know, it's tough. You know, you open a cocktail forward restaurant, and that was the thing. You know, it's like we opened it with this vision of, okay, you go to Taste for cocktails and like there's food, but it's not like a full on restaurant. And then you go to this place and eat, and you go to this place for beer, and you go to this place for wine. Like, can you take them all and like really intentionally do it all in one spot? And so we were kind of, you know, borrowing from our favorite things and smashing them together. It's what I tell people, like, well, I want to open a restaurant. I'm like, okay, well, like, you're never going to open the restaurant that no one's thought of. Okay. Like, everyone is already doing it. Respect what they're doing, take the parts that make sense, and then do your interpretation of it. And so that was us like saying, all right, well, we want to borrow this from this, and, you know, it ended up working. Yeah. But we knew the food was so key because it was cocktail driven, but the food had to be accessible and comfortable, and like craveable was the big word that I'm like, this just needs to be food that you're just like,
oh, it is.
I just want it, you know? And so Mike and Grant like nailed that. Like they killed it, but it's ultimately Travis and I were super tight, and we were the ones doing it. And you can't expect, you know, chefs and managers you hire. It's like, these are like, this is like the restaurant's a trampoline, like always. And I constantly tell people, I'm like, 5% of people we hire are going to be long-term people. Everyone else is just like, how do I get you to the next better thing? You know, that's our goal, like to progress you and bounce you up. And so it's tough when you're not a chef opening a restaurant. You're trusting these people in the kitchen so much, and ultimately, like, they have their prerogative, they have their life, you know, like ultimately if it's not their space, you can't expect them to be there forever. And so we, you know, we lucked out that we had Mikey for a long time and Grant for a long time. And then, you know, it's like the pandemic hits, you know, and then it's like shakes everything up. And that's why a spot like that, it's harder to solidify the kitchen because, you know, you don't, Travis and I aren't chefs. Right.
So first was Retreat, then came
Yellowbelly, yep.
Then came Lazy Tiger. So how far apart did Yellowbelly follow Retreat?
So Retreat was 2015. Yellowbelly was 2018. Okay. Lazy Tiger 2020. So like 2 years to 2.5 years, almost like kind of like clockwork. Yeah. And so when we opened Retreat, it was like Travis had this vision for this like Gastropub, which was the super controversial word for us because as much as we were like, we don't like this word necessarily, you know, but also it just happens to kind of be what this space is.
What does Gastropub mean technically?
It basically means a like food forward, like common space, like drinking. It's kind of the best way to describe good drinks and good food in the same space. And, you know, it morphed into whatever it is now. But it also was tough because from a marketing standpoint, I knew the term gastropub would bring a lot of St. Louisans that were like not going to a cocktail bar, not going to a tapas restaurant. They were going to go to a gastropub. It feels good. Like I can go there and drink beer. I can go there and have a burger. And like, it had to be that. It still is that, right. You know? So the pros and cons of that word, you know, we've kind of dropped it from most of the like social media and such, but also, you know, like it or hate it, like it's kind of the best word to describe what we do.
So you know, you have Yellowbelly, which is a completely different concept. And then the space behind Yellowbelly that has been Lazy Tiger, we've been to Halloween pop-ups there. It was once a venue. You know, you've done a lot of different things with there. Like, what has been like the transition and identity of trying to like find a space? Because I'm sure that's difficult. You like, we have this square footage, you know, but like, what are we using it for?
Yeah, when we signed the lease, we were like, we want this much space. And so we left this like 1,100 square foot sliver. And the building agreed to it, you know, but ultimately there was this 1,100 square feet that like no one else could really use. It was basically our storage that for the first, 4 months we weren't getting charged for. So I was like, this is the best pantry ever. It's just this huge, it's like no restaurant has this. Yeah. And then they were like, knock, knock, guys, like, give me lots of money for that space or we're going to, we got to make money on this. And ultimately, like, we weren't ready to take on that square footage initially. because we were taking out a huge loan. The build out was so expensive, and we were like, we don't think 30 more seats, like we don't think we can handle that.
Right.
And so it quickly became, we need to monetize this space. And so we did like another minor build out to make it to where it could function as its own bar. And so what I wanted it to be was Lazy Tiger, but I knew that it was just going to take some time to get there. And so we knew we could do construction just in time for the holidays. And we knew if we did one round of like holidays events and parties, we could help pay for the build out. And so then we knew, okay, well, the vision is to turn this into the cocktail bar, and then COVID hits like right in the middle of it. And it was like, well, we just got to keep going. We just have to do this because like we're this close, like just finish it, just make it happen. And so that space, yeah, it's so funny because it is just like 1,100 square feet of, but in my mind, the like smaller intimate cocktail bar that still has a full dinner menu from Yellowbelly is like, it was created as like my dream bar to go to. Ultimately I was like, this doesn't have, you're not trying to do 200 people a night. You don't need to make everyone happy in this space. It just can be as cool as you want it to be. You can showcase things you wouldn't normally put on the menu at Yellowbelly. You can use spirits and flavors that, it's like there's a certain level of mass appeal that has to be there when you're trying to do 1,500 people a week out of Yellowbelly. But at Lazy Tiger, it's more experimental. It's more intimate, and it kind of has no boundaries. Kind of just it's just cocktails and the Yellowbelly food menu.
You could get fun with it. Like it probably is like passionate for you because you're
Absolutely.
like, hey, if I'm gonna drop a cocktail and I'm gonna call it something insane that I wouldn't call it. Like on Yellowbelly, you're like, well, we have some doctors and people that come in here that like we're like, oh yeah, Lazy Tiger, same like building but completely different vibe. And you probably see different people coming.
It is cool.
A lot of people love that place. Like I've seen a lot of people message like just like, yo, Lazy Tiger, and I'm like, and the food's the same. Like for the longest, I didn't know it was the same food. And that's amazing.
It wasn't initially when we opened. We built out. We spent all this money to build out this other kitchen in there, and we were going to do this more small plates concept, and we did initially. And everyone was like, "Yeah, this is good, but can I get like the salmon?" And we were like, "Yeah, it's right there." Like,
walk over.
But initially, our chef was like, yo, I can't just add 30 seats every night. Like, I don't know if that's going to work. And so once we realized we could turn that space that was going to be the kitchen there into a bakery and start baking all of our own breads and all our own desserts. And so then it turned into like, okay, this space is better used like this. And ultimately it takes one more person hired to execute an entire dinner menu at this space. And it's like, logistically, it's a dream because you essentially don't pay for the like Yellowbelly pays for the kitchen labor, and at Lazy Tiger you are able to offer a full dinner menu without
and the systems are already there.
The systems are already there. Everything's already there.
Nothing's changing except just a couple more plates a night, like 30 more people or 60. I guess 2 dinner rushes, like 60 people.
Yeah.
Right?
So it's so symbiotic, and it's the biggest hurdle in my mind was like making it its own thing. Like it can't just feel like the annex or the sidebar or I wanted to go to Yellowbelly, they stuck me in this room, and so that was so key to like, okay, Yellowbelly is this like tropical, equatorial, like very light and breezy, but like what does like the jungle like under the canopy feel like, of like a little more aggressive, and that's where so like
cool.
Darker.
Yeah, and that's where the Lazy Tiger
greens.
came from, of this like this aggressive, powerful animal that's just like chilling, and I think that's kind of what the flavors and the vibe should be, of like, okay, like this is more bold. There's a little bit more like masculine take and like a little more minimalist, but just like feels good.
I love that.
That is so neat. Yeah. Let me see. What else? Okay. So every time we've gone into one of your restaurants, you're there. Doesn't matter what day of the week it is.
He's like, unfortunately.
You are there. So, my dad worked in the hospitality industry.
Oh, cool.
He was, general managers, 30 years. He's done that. So, I know how time consuming that is, obviously. And so how does that, affect like just, taking away from your time
Yeah.
at home and,
Yeah.
what do you do when you are at home? Like you just,
Yeah, no, this is
it's true. As a kid, I remember I'm like, oh, my dad's gone.
Yeah.
It sucks.
I mean, it
but
is, yeah.
we would stay up late to try and see him. We'd always be like, can you bring us a dessert? And we'd just like hang out with them in the kitchen.
Oh my gosh.
when we got
Well,
to see him.
kudos to your dad, because that is like hard work.
Yeah.
I'm finding that balance
Mhm.
because ultimately I love being there. That's the tough thing is like I pulling up the cameras, I'm watching. When I'm not there, I want to be there. But it's a healthy balance of, I took last November, I was like, I'm going to be in this building. I think I was only there one night. It was like an experiment of like, okay, well, if I'm there during the day and I'm checking on things and I'm making sure, having manager meetings before service, but I'm not there when we're open for a whole month, what happens,
Mhm.
because I was like, do I make myself more important than I am? I don't know. I need to see.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was a great enlightening moment because my GM was more empowered because he was the most important person in the room. My chef was more empowered. Things were great. Sales were great. Feedback was awesome. And it allowed me to realize like, okay, like I need to I've made myself not that important. And like, that's great. And I think that is like the whole goal is like make myself non-crucial. So that when I'm there, it feels like, okay, like this person is here enough that I'm not like, oh gosh, Tim's here. And like, it's like, that's always my goal. It's like, I worked for an owner that every time we walked in, people were like, do this, make sure this is like this. And I'm like, if that's the culture, like I've done something wrong. Like it should be like, oh, hey, cool, Tim's here.
Sure.
Like this is what I've been working on, or look, we've been doing this. And so, I've now found that balance. And like our GM was out of town the other week and I worked all the shifts. And so the goal is for me to be able to do everyone's job. I've found that the best thing for my employees is to be able to say, my cat needs to go to the hospital. I can't work. And the answer is like, okay, I'm bussing tonight. I'm hosting, I'll bartend. Like you have a safety net because you don't normally get that in the industry. It's like each person is so crucial. It's why it's so shitty at times is like you not showing up to work is just like weighing on so many people.
Oh, yeah.
And like my wife doesn't go into her 9 to 5 and like no one cares. It doesn't affect anyone really,
Freely
like,
just take days off.
Yeah, and most people can, I work from home or I don't, or I played hooky and like no one noticed. And I'm like, man, that is
Day
just
still
not,
went on.
yeah, it's just like not the reality of the industry. And so I mean, I feel the weight and the wear and tear and it's not sustainable to be there as much as I have been. But it's that fine balance. It took retreat 3 full years to get to the point where I could say, I don't have to be here. And it's everything's great, and that's because like the GM was someone that we hired the second month we opened that had worked with Travis and I the entire time. I trusted this person. I knew they'd be handling decisions just like I would. And then the same with Jenny there. And it was just like, if someone says, hey, look, this happened, I know if I was there, it probably would have happened the same. And like when I felt like that, it was this huge burden off my shoulders. And then to get Yellowbelly like that, as much as I don't want to admit it, like it is. And then we opened Lazy Tiger and I'm like, oh shoot, well now I have like this other place that like is still kind of this toddler and does require like a good deal of attention.
A little bambi. Like
Yeah. And so I feel like I said, I love being there. I want to be there. I miss it when I'm not there. But now that I have an almost 4-year-old, I'm like, okay, we're going to start getting into karate practice and dancing lessons. And like, okay, I need to be able to do that,
And you need to be able to trust that the systems that you built are good when you're gone. And that experiment that you did was probably so nice. When we went our honeymoon and like our business ran while we were gone, I was like, wow, like money was coming in, like emails were like getting handled and then I wasn't in there and like conversations. And I was like, oh, that was only 7 days, but that was still, I've never not worked for 7 days since I started my business.
I know. I was like, are you going to be able to like
It was
not
tough.
work on our honeymoon and like relax. And,
And
he's like,
we're
I
lucky that
am,
we can
and-
do a lot remote. So like, I'm like, I don't have to like be in the restaurant in the trenches.
Yeah.
Like most of the time my work is done before like night comes around, but I'll still work at night, but like you don't have to. Like your whole entire business was like 5 to 9
Yeah, it's funny because like there's only so much you can do
during the day.
to get ready and prepared, because and I feel like that's what I'm figuring out now is like how do I, and our chef is having a baby any day now. His due date is I think in like 3 days, and so I'm now like, okay, I've done this before. I know a bit how to make myself uncrucial, and now working with him of like you have to make it to where like you don't matter. Like that's like the highest level of management of like, how do I make it to where everything I've done makes it to where I don't need to be here? And I think it's just tough.
Yeah. My dad, he used to say that. He's
tough.
like, you have good systems in place, like when you are not here and the shift runs smoothly and everyone knows what they're doing and you can trust that and you can relax and it's just done the same way as if I were here. So,
So we've talked to a lot of people on the show from every industry, whether it's like artists, entrepreneurs, musicians, stuff like that. Like, and the pandemic hit everybody differently. For you guys, I feel like your industry got hit harder than any other industry, and I could be wrong about that. But like, tell us about. Okay, so you have 3 restaurants at this point. Like you have 2.5 restaurants. You almost have
one
a new one.
about to
One about to happen.
So tell us about like that, because that was when you were like, I can't take off. I can't do this. I can't do like, so just tell us about navigating that through all that.
It was initially just like mad stressful because you just didn't know, everyone was like, restaurants will never exist anymore. People will never be in a room with each other anymore. Masks are forever. Everyone's going to die. And it was just like, this is very bad.
Right.
But it was also this huge, there's so much silver lining to it because we were closed for so long. We, people who had never taken more than a week off work at a time had this huge break. Our chef got to go rock climbing and got to do all this stuff. And, he's a guy that works 70 hours a week, no matter what, every week. And so for a lot of people, it was like you got off the hamster wheel and we got to look at the business and be like, what works? What doesn't work? Why? Let's be intentional about every single thing we serve, about everything we do, about how employees are handled. And I think that it was great in that way to say like, okay, well, we can cut our menu in half and like, you're not going to say anything about it. 'Cause like 10 places are open. So like coming out of it, you had the ability to make bold decisions and to kind of, switch concepts or lean into something specifically. And so there were definitely parts of it that I think like we are stronger. We wouldn't be this strong if COVID didn't happen. Where we are now with our staff and like how our staff rallied together and the community we have, especially in like the kitchen at Yellowbelly, was like, we didn't lose a single person. We only lost a couple people coming out of COVID because they took like programming jobs and they were planning on doing that anyway, of the whole, 40-person staff. And so it was like a make or break moment of like, I feel like you were in the situation where you basically lost everyone and you didn't reopen. And now reopening is this monster chore because you need to hire all these people, but you don't have sales coming in and you need to clean this restaurant. You need to order $60,000 worth of product to hopefully be busy. And like, we were just so fortunate that we kept our staff,
So your situation might have been different than a lot of
I
your
think
friends.
our situation was a lot different than other people and mainly because like Travis and I are so involved, and that it's like, I was working as busser / salad maker / bartender / host when we reopened because I was like, we need to make it to where the people that work here make as much money per hour as possible so that we can keep people to a limited amount of hours and try to keep it to where it's like, okay, we're opening, no one's working more than 2 or 3 days a week. So like your exposure is limited and that people aren't overwhelmed. And so it was like, if I hadn't been doing that, we wouldn't have reopened. Like it wouldn't have been possible. And so, and our GMs at both restaurants were just like dynamite, like totally took control of things. Didn't like, I mean, just were so crucial. And so I look at it and I'm like, the staff we had made it possible, you know, and I feel bad for places that just didn't have that structure, or they were in like, you know, a management flux right when it happened, which is kind of where we were in the kitchen at Retreat of like, we were in the middle of like working on hiring a new kitchen manager and like this hits and you're like, oh my God, you know, like how do we train people without a kitchen manager? And so, you know, it was incredibly stressful when it first happened. And just like, okay, well, we still owe hundreds of thousands of dollars on a loan and our rent. Luckily, our landlords worked with us, but like our rent is crazy a month. You know, it's like not being open for 2 months and paying rent. We're bankrupt. You know, it's like it's not possible to just hang
sit
out. You know, and like I think the government did everything they could. You know, and I think that they, with, you know, even with the employee retention credits that are coming out now, it's like, I think a lot of restaurants that like kept adapting and kept saying, okay, well, like, I guess this is our concept and I guess this is our concept and we have this many employees, so we're going to do this concept. I think those places are thriving right now. Yeah. And, you know, I see the places that are busy and I see the places that aren't. And it's like even more stark now than it was before. And I think that's like not necessarily a bad thing. I think there was some fat cut that just didn't need to be open anymore. You know, I think it was a good scapegoat for some places to be like, we're going to wave the flag. Like we've been trying to figure out when to close or how to close. There's no sexy way to close a restaurant. Right. You don't open a restaurant knowing how to close it. Yeah. You know? Yeah. And so it was this opportunity for some people to be like, hey, look, we had our run.
And then for those people that were strong and had that opportunity to like, when have you ever had like a couple months to sit at home and think and look at other, like study and look at other ways to like get better? Right. And it seems like you more than, you know, I don't know many people like at your level in the industry, but like you take inspiration from other cities and you're like looking at people like, so tell us like a little bit about like some of that, like inspiration from other cities and even people in our city that inspire you and stuff like that. So.
Well, on our honeymoon, as we just opened Retreat, we got married, we went to New York City, and like I drug my wife through as many cocktail bars and concepts.
This was right at Retreat, so it's like 15.
And so I was just like obsessed. I was like, man, I've got to like know everything about these. Like, and I still feel like, you know, people have come in and been like, oh, I was in New York at this bar and I had this cocktail called this. And I was like, yeah, I know. I've read their menu. I know what's in it. And they're like, you're weird. And I'm like, this is what I do. Like, I stalk the people's menus that I think they're smart, and I look at their combinations and I look at what they're doing and I draw inspiration from it. You know, I think that's what you have to be observing, what other people are doing, especially the leaders. You know, it's like if Joaquim Simo's doing this at Pouring Ribbons and I think he's brilliant, then like, this is something I'm going to be constantly looking at. You know, right. I don't think that I just have these great ideas that no one else has ever had. You know, it's like, I'm just like, okay, this works for you. That's a cool flavor pairing over there. And like this place in Austin has this going on. And like, that's really smart, you know, because like I said, you're borrowing what people are doing that works and just doing your interpretation of it. I mean, I definitely think what Ted Kilgore's done in the city has been huge.
Over at Planter's House
and like what he did at Taste and what he's done and what he's doing at Planter's House and just like solidifying St. Louis as like a cocktail place. You know, it's funny. My buddies in Kansas City, they're like, that run incredibly high end, beautiful bars are like, yeah, ultimately vodka sodas are like the number one seller every night. Like we're going to sell $50 cocktails, but also like vodka sodas. And I'm like, that's the old fashioned for St. Louis. And like, that makes me happy that I'm like, St. Louis is the city that you're like, man, we were busy. We sold like 80 old fashions. I'm like, that's awesome. That's cool. That's a cocktail. Yeah. It's not, and like no shade to vodka sodas, but St. Louis like likes cocktails and like cocktails that taste like alcohol. Yeah. And I think that like we owe a lot of that to Ted and like showing people like these stirred and these, you know, these real cocktails and that like, you know, even just when we opened Retreat, we had the Oaxaca Faca Flame on the menu. And I had just been in San Diego and I'd been drinking mezcal. And my wife was like, are people gonna like this? And I was like, I don't know.
We're gonna
I think it's
see.
great. Let's
The
try
name's
it.
cool. It's
yeah, exactly.
hot,
And it
you
has
know?
passion fruit. It has some zip to it. It has spice. And when we first opened, 1 out of every 10 came back because they didn't like how smoky it was. You know, and like there was a real learning curve to like, okay, well, if you're going to be a gastropub that people bring their 80-year-old dad in for their birthday,
Right.
you know, and he accidentally orders this mezcal cocktail, like, well, what happens? I'm like, he doesn't like it and you give him something else. It doesn't matter. You know, like if we're going to try to push something that's not happening, some people aren't going to like it, you know, and that's
Always
if
part of
like
it.
you're not doing anything if you're not getting that, you know, resistance. And so that was, yeah, it was just a cool, you know, like, all right, let's just try to push the right boundaries. Because ultimately, like, you didn't like it, get a lager and a poutine and like you're happy.
Right.
You know?
But just trying and like being adventurous, because I never had a cocktail. I was like rum and Coke, Captain and Coke.
Totally. I mean, when we
The first
moved
cocktail I
here
had, I
4 years
forgot.
ago, like our eyes, like we just appreciate.
Taste was one of those places.
Well, we
You
went
guys
to
were one of
Planner's
those
house,
places. Planner's house. Oh
and
my gosh. they're
that
fire.
was probably one of the first few places that
But
we
remember,
were
I
like,
was
wow,
like $15
quality.
for this, but then I'm like,
Because we were
okay,
coming, we were
$15 for
we
this.
were coming out from St. Charles County, you
yeah, we
know,
lived in
where
St. Charles. You know,
we just didn't
had $2
experience
drinks on Main Street.
restaurants and cocktail bars
right,
like this.
right.
And it was. And so then we would drink it and then we're like, it's so worth it. Like we never complained again. And like,
and we went to Chicago. There's this underground place that does like tiki drinks in Chicago. It's
yeah,
3 dots.
3 dots and a dash.
Yeah,
dots and a
it's the
dash.
bomb.
We found it
It's
somehow.
so
we're like,
cool.
we can't. We were on GPS walking.
Yeah.
We're like, we're here, but
We
we
could
weren't
not
there.
find
In
it.
that alley.
I'm like, where
Bro,
is
I
this
spent like
place?
$60 on that treasure chest, but I was like, I don't give a
Oh,
fuck. This thing is
yeah.
fire. I just
yeah.
wanted it for the picture. I was like,
love that place.
Just do
My
it.
buddy and I happened upon it. It had just opened, and so the same year it opened, it won Best Bar in America.
Oh,
and then
wow.
It has exploded ever since. And it's
Packed.
it's
Dude, it's
fantastic.
so cool.
It was packed
So
when we were there.
Happened upon it, and it had just opened a week ago, and some bartender was like, "You should go to this new tiki place." And so my buddy and I went there, and we were 2 of, I don't know, 8 people there,
Mhm.
and we had the best time, and the service was wonderful. We were lit. I ate somebody else's food at some point. I do remember that.
when we went in there, we waited in line. We were shoulder to shoulder. It was
Yeah.
pitch black dark. I don't know how the workers
And
work
you
there, dude.
ordered-
Like that would stress me out. You
Yeah.
can't see anything, dude.
You did. You ordered your treasure chest, which
You
came
couldn't set
out
it
on like a
anywhere. I was
thing this
holding
big.
it.
Yeah.
I'm like eating the plantain chips
Yeah.
off the like little pallet it came on. It was,
But like places like that, and like now ever
It's
since
just
then,
worth
like we
it.
always just try, and like there's places that have our favorites, and like I said, I tried mezcal for the first time at Lazy Tiger, and ever since I've been addicted.
never gone back. That's what you look for every single time.
Golden
Anytime we go
Hoosier had a
anywhere.
good one. Golden Hoosiers by our house, they had a good mezcal cocktail there.
Yeah, I like that spot.
Yeah, it's right over there. It's a cool spot. Like a lot of cool places, but like you said, like you can thank Ted for that, and that would be cool to even talk to Ted too, because he was like one of the first people that was really doing it on it.
Yeah.
And he's been noticed on a national levels too,
Absolutely.
and you have as well. And
Yeah, I mean, I remember, so he's now one of my close friends, Kyle, who was at Taste, who's brilliant and an amazing person. I remember going in there and like ordering a last word, and my buddy was like, "You gotta get this cocktail. It's called a last word," and like it just, my brain exploded. Like I had never, like the combination, this equal parts like chartreuse and maraschino and lime and gin, and I was just like, what is this, like magic? Like this tastes like magic to me. And I remember just being like, I have to figure this out. Like I have to figure out what this is, and like this like intrigue that this like wells up inside of me. Like I gotta figure this out. And I remember that being this moment of like, okay, like coffee, the margins are terrible, and also like this is what I think this is what I want to do.
And you
That's
liked
so
it, and like
cool.
I think there's a lot more creativity with cocktails.
Yeah.
Hence
Oh,
the name alone.
absolutely.
The
Yeah.
name alone, you can't call a cocktail,
Okay.
coffee like a Hot Boy Summer.
We
Right,
where
right.
did we go? We
This
went
was
to,
my favorite cocktail name so far this year.
Where did we go to dinner? We've been going out like every week trying somewhere new. Where did we go like a week or 2 ago that we were like sitting there? Was it Juniper?
Juniper.
And we were just like
Right across the
playing a
street from you
game.
guys.
And I was like, let's just think of cocktail names. Like if you had to
Yeah.
name a cocktail, what would it be? And that was hard. Like we
Yeah.
were just trying to think of
Yeah.
like the craziest, like,
Yeah.
but it has to be appealing and it has to
Right.
be, you know, it's just that.
It's
that would
funny
be a fun
because
game.
I like my background and my 2-year degree was advertising communications, and that's what I wanted to do. And it's so much of what I do now is like the product is obviously, so important, and we focus so much on it, but also like a lot of places just don't know how to sell their product, and they don't pay attention or put enough emphasis on like everything you touch, every word you read contributes to a feeling you have in that space. And like the font, the layout, the everything is affecting how much you like something. And like the expectations are so key, because when we opened Retreat, I was like, we have to have pictures of the cocktails on the menu. Have to, and it was like this, well, this is gonna cost a lot of money. We have to have these illustrated. And I was like, look, like if you can see the drink and you can see yourself drinking it, you're just helping set the expectations, because it was at the time when someone ordered a cocktail and it came in a coupe, they're like, oh, I don't drink out of this glass. And I was like, we just need to already, you see the rocks glass, you see the big cubes. I want that cocktail, or I want this and that, little skinny glass.
And you do that at Yellowbelly now with the animation or the drawing.
Exactly. Yeah. And so we for a minute, because of COVID and like the digital menus, which thank God we don't do those anymore. Oof. Yeah, to me,
I appreciate you guys for going back to the menus, because
I
I told her the other day, I'm like, I don't like the
did.
interaction of me and her sitting at the bar like this. I don't want my phone at me with the bar. I don't like that whole interaction, because it just encourages you to be distracted.
Yeah. I totally agree, and I like from logistics side point, it was so nice because I can edit the menu like 2 seconds.
Yeah. True.
So we kind of like, we're still adjusting on the like, hey, look, you got to plan this stuff now. We can't print 160 sheets of paper and just like do it tomorrow again. But it's so much the experience. It really is.
I just was saying it from the lazy perspective of being a server in the past. I'm like, look at all those servers are so happy they don't have to wipe menus down as side work tonight.
Yeah.
I was just
and your guys is like clipboards and but I appreciate the picture, because sometimes like
it's cool.
I'll order a drink and like hers like looks like it has way more in it, or it looks more masculine, and I'm sitting here and they like hand her my drink and I'm like, yo, I didn't even know that drink was that drink, whatever. Right. But like sometimes like and it's the whole experience.
Well, now what we do is like we'll go on Instagram, and so that's like one of the things I was going to ask you. It's like your Instagram looks great, and like the photography and marketing and how that plays a part, and like how much value does that hold? Yeah, for,
it is really so key, because it's how people discover and find things. It's I saw this person at this place, I want to go, and like people under 35, I think aren't doing as much of the like, what does this restaurant critic say about this? They're like, this place looks cool, and I saw it here, and like I want to be in that.
Let me go look at their tagged photos, or let me go look at
exactly. And I think that's so much about like, I've been to places with awesome food, with awesome drink, with good service, but when I think about where I want to go tonight, I think about a place I want to be and how that place made me feel. And like when people walk in and they're met with eye contact and like, hey, welcome in, like we're happy you're here. You're like, oh, you want me to be here? Because like I want to be here. Like people want to be wanted, and they want to be, it's like it's a special thing to walk in and be like, people care that I'm here. This feels good. And now like my steak's a little bit overcooked, and like I'm chilling because like I like this place. And like you buy yourself a lot of grace by like actual hospitality. And I think that's what's so key. And they're like, yeah, you're trying to do everything perfectly, but if you're in a place that you like and people like you and you feel comfortable, you gloss over the minor mishaps. But when you're in a space that's cold, oh man, all you can see is the little problem.
Like your water is not filled, but like you're like, oh my gosh, like my water's not
exactly.
filled. And then you think like, well, my water's not filled.
Been
but like also,
how long?
And I'm like, and you're playing Evanescence? Like, get me out of here. Like, who is in charge of this vibe? They are dropping the ball. This is not your.
I'm ready to go. Check.
Honestly,
check, please.
There have been times that I'm like, who does your playlist? And like, do they realize that like nobody wants to hear this music? Because ultimately, it's just another example of like, this isn't about you. Like this is like this. Oh, this is the bartender's playlist. Okay, was the bartender spending $150 to eat here?
Yeah.
No. So like, and I get it. Like if that's your aesthetic, do it. But like, I'm probably not here for it.
Well, you're there, like you're in the hospitality industry, you're there to serve. And like I love how you use like your marketing and your communications like stuff. So like do you, probably not now, but like how long were you like heavily involved in like all the Instagram, social media?
I still do it.
Oh, you still do all of it?
Yeah,
Really?
I still do all of it.
Oh, you do? Okay.
I
was gonna ask who's
So
I
even
know-
the way you type, the fonts you use, like the lines, like you
Yeah.
have this certain type of like, I'm
Yeah.
cool as fuck, but I'm also like here to serve you like
you know,
dope food.
it's definitely part of like, I don't know when I'll be able to let those go because it's like my face isn't like all over them, and I don't want people to be like, oh yeah, like I want to go to Tim's restaurant. Like I don't want it to be about that. I want it to be like, this brand has a personality. And there have been people who are like, oh man, like I really like this place, but like I don't really like the language you use. It makes me uncomfortable. You know, there's the noise of that. I'm like, that's fine. You don't have to come here. But like,
And so
yeah.
like just the way you word thing or just
there'll
like
be
this.
times that we'll say like damn or like yes,
Oh.
but there's sensitivity to that. There's a lot of people that are like, I follow you and this makes me feel a little uncomfortable. And I'm like, yo, I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable, but also like click unfollow. Like you don't.
This isn't your place.
And also like if you come here and eat here, no one's cussing at you. I promise.
Right.
We're just
It's
like
just we have personality.
developing a
Sure.
personality, and that's why to me like how the font looks, how it's phrased, like needs to be uniform and make sense. And to me, it's like if that lines up with the music that's being played, with the attitude of the server, with the cleanliness of the bathrooms, like it all has to be
Link up.
intentional. And that's what I feel like so many times that I'm like, if you don't think the song playing affects what I think of this steak, like you're wrong. People are emotionally moved by eye contact, by music, by the texture of your fork. You know, like when we
thickness of your plate.
Yeah.
yes,
the
when we
glasses.
it's like the places that still serve me the like to go shit at the restaurant. I get it. Maybe you overbought a lot of it, but like the plastic things on my table in the middle of dinner, I'm like, this detracts from a vibe. Like this, like people are putting value on everything they touch. When we opened Retreat, it was hilarious. We had no money. We had negative money, and the silverware came in. It was like prison silverware. You could bend it in half with like one hand, and the steak knives were you could snap them in half, and it was like we were supposed to open in a couple days. This was it. There is no money.
Right.
And the chef was just like, no, we're not. Like, I can't.
You can't
serve
put my
food.
name on
Like,
that
you
food.
can't
Yeah.
eat food. You know, it's like everything we did, all the money we spent, all the time, and this one detail. And he was exactly right. That he's like,
Yeah.
this detail makes this food expensive instead of a heavy fork, and the food's delicious, and there's value there. And I think that like that, the emphasis on how things feel, and even just like exact language used table side. You know, it's like I am forever cursed. Like my wife is more of this because she's a hospitality expert. She served forever. She's brilliant. And we both will go out to dinner and it's like, oh, hey, thanks. No problem is like the response. And like, to me, I'm triggered. And I'm like, oh God, like, oh, it shouldn't be a problem. Like, you know what I mean? It's like
Right.
these trigger words that like, I tell the staff, I'm like, look, like it's never no problem. Because like, of course it's not a problem that they've spent money and ordered something from you. You know, it's like these little things that make it feel like this is a more lowbrow place, or a place that like, man, $150 for a dinner and like, I didn't feel special. Like, that's not awesome.
Mhm.
But like, I've spent
Yeah.
$800 on dinner and been like, cool, well spent, because
Yep.
I feel special. I feel like
Absolutely.
I mattered. And I think that's, it's key.
I think this is everything that like we agree on.
Yeah.
Everything you're saying, like this is
Most
just
of our
how
money
we think.
is spent on great experiences in
It is
food.
so the I
Our
mean,
other lifestyle, like everything else is pretty low. Like we're really low on like material. Like I
Yeah,
wear
we
my
don't
own
care.
clothes all the time. Like, anything I'm wearing has my brand on it.
T-shirts
Like I
or-
don't care about anything. But like spending money on experiences, like we'll always forever travel. And when we travel, like we go hard. Like
we don't
go
care. We're
to
like
go to the best places.
you're
Yeah.
here. That's what you're here
Right.
to do. Experience it,
Right.
appreciate it.
And even
And
in
that's just
St.
what
Louis.
we do.
Right.
Like
Even in St. Louis too.
And I think
Yeah.
that's a lot of it is like, you know, because people ask, well, I'm from Oklahoma City. Like, what's different about your restaurants? And I'm like, it's owned by a 30-year-old bartender who like likes to just keep it cool. Like it's just like relevant and modern. And like, I know what I like and I know what I don't like and I know what feels good and what doesn't. And like, that's evident, you know, and like ultimately we'll go places and I'm like, this is owned by a 65-year-old white dude. I guarantee it. I guarantee you. Like that's what this feels like.
Yeah.
And you know, it's like, it's a lot of St. Louis is like wagon wheels playing and the walls are red and you have pasta in front of you. And like, that's chill, but like, that's like a lot of places,
Right.
you know? So I think observing that and being like, okay, well, like there's a generation of people who don't want that. And they're not going to the movies after this. This is the thing, you know, this is what they're doing. They expect this to feel good. And like, it's this Tetris of, okay, we want you to feel good, but we also have someone waiting that needs to sit here and feel good. So it's like, how do we make this timing to where like you don't feel pushed out?
Yes.
But also like these people don't sit here waiting too long. And so that I feel like with COVID and putting time limits on tables was like the most brutal part of reopening after COVID.
Yeah, because
we had to put strict time limits on it or we couldn't make enough money to survive. And like, nothing is worse than people being like, hey, I'm having a great time. Can I order a drink? And me being like, no,
well,
you need to get up. Like, that sucks. No one wants to do that.
That's the key. That's when you're like, but you're welcome to sit at the bar and get a drink.
But
And
the bar
you
was
know,
probably
that's the
packed, too.
thing that I'm like,
Oh.
look, we're on a 2-hour wait. You need to be up. The bar's full.
oh,
There's
well
nowhere
then.
for you to be. And like, I feel, you know, it's like, I feel
And
like
a lot of
we're
people
so
didn't
separate.
understand. Like
But
we
they
did.
tell you at the beginning, and it's like,
It doesn't
you
matter if
knew.
they tell you at the
Well,
beginning.
I'm saying us. We
No, I know,
like,
but
we
it really
knew,
doesn't.
On the know,
we
but also it's
understand.
just, it's a vibe kill that you're like,
We're talking like we're getting into it. Hey, there's somebody over.
Exactly.
It's like awkward.
You can
It's-
feel that they're like checking.
That's their last
time.
experience.
Yes.
That might be the last time they ever come here for another year or two.
I mean,
ever.
people were coming in, they drove an hour and a half. It's their anniversary, but they're 30 minutes late. And so I'm like, y'all have an hour, 15 minutes. And it's crushing me that I need to limit that. But like, ultimately, we have to.
It's not
you
fair
know?
for the other
and
people that
And
are shut
now,
up.
but I feel like it was, now that we're somewhere in the in-between of like, okay, we were able to loosen our time restrictions. Like, we still have to have them. But now, you know, it's like people are understanding to like, hey, look, like we do have 2-hour time limits on tables because like we just have to be able to accommodate as many people as possible. Like, we were open 7 days a week. We were open for 13 services and now we're open for 6, you know? So it's like, we cut our services in half.
Mhm.
Like, we have to be able to do as many people
Sure.
while we're open as possible.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think the vast majority of people, like, they get it, you know?
I think so. You might get a few, but I know you do.
Oh, yeah.
That's all
I had a
right.
lady
They'll be back.
Scream at me. the
Once
other
you
day.
have that spam fried rice, they'll be back. That's
right,
like
I'm
my
like, you
fave.
just need a cocktail and
Spam
some
fried rice.
Spam fried rice.
Never would I thought
Just-
spam would taste so good.
That's
Every
when
time
I
I think of
fell in love
spam, I
with
look at
Spam.
that cup or that can, and then when I had it at Lazy Tiger, which Yellowbelly, same spam, but like,
Yeah.
and now we get it every time.
Now I
and-
just want to pick it up after work and just bring it home. It's like my
Well, you got to compete with some
afternoon
good rice in
snack.
St. Louis, though.
Oh,
Like
totally.
some fried rice in St. Louis, like you
Totally.
got to compete with it.
So
So.
true.
Why are you pointing at
Oh,
me?
so I wanted to ask you about if you could only do one role at
Yeah.
the restaurant. Obviously like bartending, but like at what spot? Like would it be like
Yeah.
at what restaurant and what role and why?
Yeah.
Which
that's-
of the three?
So like you have the
That's-
3. You can only
yeah.
do one thing, 40 hours a week. That's it.
Whoa.
You have to do one.
Yeah, that's a big question. I mean, it really does change constantly, and it's why I've made my role what it is. Is like I get bored super easily. I like constantly I'm someone who like wakes up and I'm like, I brushed my teeth like this yesterday. What if I do it like this tomorrow? And what if I change it like this? You know, my wife is someone that's like, no, I brush my teeth the same way every single time. Don't ever mess with my systems. And I'm someone that's like, what if you could be better? What if it could be faster?
Right.
And so I find that like bartending is ultimately the thing that like I love the skill side of it. I love the personal side of it. And it's like not as awful on my knees as like working in the kitchen, but also as like when I work a full week just in the kitchen, it's maybe my most favorite role to work because you're doing a task and you can see it's, from start to finish, and you're like really in the pulse and the heart of like what's happening.
Right.
And so there are times that I'm like, I could do this. And then I'll lap through the dining room and I'm like, oh man, there are like 15 faces I recognize. Like I need to go talk to people. And like that gives me energy. And so I realize I'm like, okay, like.
But sometimes you can kind of hide back in the kitchen and be like, I can just focus and get more work done.
Gosh,
Because you're a bartender, like somebody be like,
oh yeah.
And you're just like,
it's amazing. Like I'm used to doing 20 things at once.
Yeah.
And so to do one thing, start to finish an entire shift, is like kind of amazing. And I'm like, this is like cheating.
So I think the people are wondering, what would the role be?
Oh man.
One restaurant, one role.
I would bartend at Lazy Tiger.
That's what I thought he was gonna say. I was like, that would.
It's special because it's the size that 4 people can be at the bar. You can be having a great time. You can still be making all the drinks for the spot. You can make every single cocktail that went out. It's like the other week when our lead bartender at Lazy Tiger was out of town. I hadn't worked a solo shift there in 8 months.
Wow.
And I got my ass kicked. I was so busy, and it was so fun. Oh my gosh!
I got that deeper.
The rush
appreciation.
is fun. I remember working in the industry. The rush is fun.
That deep appreciation for your guy that was, that was out, or you're like, holy shit, dude, you were that.
Oh no! Here? I got done. I was like, Dave, brother, like this was crazy. And he's like, it's every Friday, every Saturday.
He probably crushes too.
Oh, he crushes. He makes it look so easy, and like ultimately. I had so much fun, but I was like, I got to talk to this person who had this crazy story, and I got to learn about this, and I got to tell this person about Ricea, and he's all freaking out about it. And then I saw this regular that used to come to retreat every Friday, and I was like, I had so much fun.
Yeah. It flew by.
I'm like physically tired, I'm like mentally tired, but like worth it. I feel like, I rarely get to start and end a shift in the same position, like very rarely. And so to do that, I was like, man, I feel this sense of completion that like usually I'm just like doing this, then doing that, then doing that. And now, so.
Yeah, that would be special. And like that, like that's your baby, I feel like Lazy
Tiger.
It is.
And I think that if things were different, that was like kind of initially going to be the role. It's like, I'm going to open Lazy Tiger, I'm going to bartend it. And I'm like, okay, well I have a kid and like way too much going on.
You're like it'd be cool in all reality, but like, if I was still 25.
Exactly. I'm going to be behind this bar and like, man, I got like 25 things I should be doing. And like all these emails I'm supposed to be answering. Like I can't do this.
Emails too.
And also I'm like, okay, well I work a 9 to 5 schedule most days. And so when I work night, it's like, okay, well now you're working 9 to midnight. And people are like, oh, well, how's it going? I'm like, well, long. Like just because I'm working this shift doesn't mean like I don't have to do my other job. But I love it. God, I love it.
That's awesome. So what is the craziest story you overheard at a bar? And if you could pinpoint
so hard.
It's so tough. It's like
I'm sure it's different. Like
I think it's fun because people do tell bartenders kind of anything. And I mean, it's like you get 3-4 cocktails in and like
anybody will tell you.
Anyone will say anything.
Life stories.
Yes.
Built.
So it's tough because, it's usually like a boss, some sort of person who runs a company, it's like talking about employees or, saying things that he would never say to the company, and just like bragging about all the employees they've slept with and comparing it to the other person and how they need to hire more people because they're running out of people they haven't slept with.
Oh my goodness.
And, just the type of thing that you're like, wow.
Really?
Like,
and you're just sitting here like,
oh my gosh. The amount of times there was a regular that has moved that used to come into Yellowbelly and was just like that kind of awful. Like would come in solo, would just say things that you're like, I think he wants you to be impressed by, but that you're just like, dude, you're the worst kind. Like you're the way, but like your job is you don't call those people out in that moment. It's not this like, hey, dude, you shouldn't. It's always just like, look, man, like I'm gonna keep this distance. I'm not laughing at your jokes or whatever these are.
Mm-hmm.
but it's, it's more few and far between. And I think that Yellowbelly has this, there was almost a fight between one regular and another regular. This was hilarious. And there was a guy who, I don't know, was a little, he felt like he deserved the seat. And another regular who literally comes in 3-4 times a week and is a wonderful human being. And I guess they both went for the same seat, and they bumped into each other, and it was just wow, wow, wow. It was just oh shit, what's gonna happen? And there were words exchanged, and I was like, two of these people who are here all the time, but somehow are just they're gonna fight. Right. This guy's gonna hit this other guy, and this is less than ideal situation on a packed Saturday night that someone starts
and
fighting.
Two regulars that you're I love my regulars.
And I'm just look, y'all, okay, you were in the wrong, and you're overreacting, and ultimately you need to calm down, but also this person's hot, real mad, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like it's de-escalating a lot of situations. All right, this could blow up very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, it's not always just hearing the words people are saying, but noticing situations that are if I don't stop this, or
hey,
divert,
they're having too many drinks, or hey,
change the energy in the room.
This person may be drinking too much, and
and it's because you're in charge, as that bartender, and then as the owner, I'm I am responsible for all you people,
right?
And making you really upset that I'm telling you to leave,
mm-hmm.
and getting screamed at, and it's happened a couple weeks ago. Someone just screaming at my face about nothing. They had some stuff going on in their life,
mm-hmm.
that I'm just you gotta go. I'm so sorry, but
you gotta get out of here. This is not cool.
Leave.
This isn't the type of place.
And you can yell at me all you want. I don't care.
Yeah.
But you can't yell at other people. They didn't. No one came here to get yelled at.
Yep. Not here for it.
Man, yeah. But you know what? It's every time I'm man, people just have such different experiences. And people are so unique that I'm just I just have to see this as a fun insight.
Yeah.
And there's times that I'm man, what is that person's life that owns a company to hire them, to sleep with them, to fire them? What is, I promise that person is not as happy as I am.
Yeah.
So I feel bad for this person, but it's also just man, this is intriguing because people live their life like this.
People out there, yeah.
Lots of them.
They're out there.
So that kind of leads in. You said happiness, and we like to always talk about success. So what does you are successful, but what does success look like? To you?
Are you completely fulfilled and you're happy with where your business is at, and you're just things are good. This is it. This is what you didn't know this was gonna happen. This wasn't in your path, but now that it's what it turned into, are you happy?
I'm so happy. I mean, I think that it's weird because I've always been someone who's this is the goal. Do it. Make it happen. Make a list backwards of how to get there and do it. And in a lot of ways, I'm now okay, I did it. And okay, now what? Now, right now I'm Lupe Fiasco. Kick, push, coast. Just live in this, in it's
Enjoy
busy, things work, our staff is great. Every time I've been here before, I'm cool, just good enough to start the new thing, and I'm finally okay, just be here, be in the time when I know I will look back on this time and be oh dude, that was the glory days. And rarely are you appreciating that time while it's happening, and I feel I'm finally at a point where I'm I love what I do. I love the people I work with. Do I feel completely fulfilled? No. I want a million, I want to do more, but I feel that feeling of oh, well, I should do this, and I want to open this, and I want to open this, and I have this concept that I'm I just need to dock that for a minute and be everything that people told me would not work works. you know, and all the things that I lost sleep over, work, you know, and like I wake up most days convinced that today's the day that no one comes to the restaurant. You know, I still live in that anxiety of like, today's the day everyone's decided Yellowbelly sucks and no one shows up,
Right.
you know, because I have to have a healthy amount of that or else you get comfortable and you're like, oh yeah, things work and things are great. Of course they are. I'm like,
take your foot off the gas a little
exactly.
bit. And then you're like, you get complacent, you get comfortable, and you can have everything in your life, just not all at once. And you're kind of remind me in that same thing. Like I'm 26, so I'm like 4 years younger than you, but like, I'm like, I want to start this. I want to drop this project. I want to do this project, but I also want to work with this person. And I also want to do this. And I write all these things down, and she like kind of humbles me. And she said, okay, like, let's write this down. Let's put that in the vault. And
what
then
can
let's
we do now?
Let's focus on stuff. Cause a lot of the stuff I want to do doesn't really make money. That's the problem sometimes. Is like a lot of the really cool things that I want to do is not like the highest profit things. But then there's like, well, this is working. Why don't I just put a little bit more into this and like double that stream of income or whatever?
You just get so excited. Like that's the mind of an entrepreneur is your mind is always going. So you think more restaurants in the future?
I don't know. I think that's something that, I mean, right now my wife has a retail store that we have a concept for that we're going to open. I think that's the next business that will open.
Cool.
It's her turn. I've like gotten to have the ball, taken my shots, double dribbled too many times. And now it's like, yo, your turn. Like my turn to support what she's doing. I mean, there's no way I'd be doing what I'm doing without her. I mean, similarly that I'm like working on all these like these thoughts and high level things. And she's like, okay, details. So like, this is what's possible. This is what's not, this is what that's going to take. And so I couldn't stress enough that like that partnership has made things actually work. And just like you said, the hours are rough. The like 24/7, it's constant.
It's a lot.
If it's not a 3 o'clock phone call that the window's broken and the alarm's going off, or that this person got sick, or that 2 people have COVID, so now I'm working
both.
Shifts. So it's like all that support from her has made it possible. And so I think we're going to do the retail store, which I'm super, super stoked on. And then, I don't know. I for the first time in my life, I'm like not laser focused on like a future vision. And
Probably feels good. Probably feels
very uncomfortable. Like I feel like I'm, I don't know.
Because you're not
like,
I feel like I'm slacking.
Yeah, you feel like
I
you
feel
should
like
be
if
doing
I'm
something.
not like
innovating,
busting ass towards something, but also I'm like, but
You are.
I am, but it just doesn't feel
I
like,
know.
if I'm not risk taking, then like, what am I doing? And so I have to like check myself and be like, no, like you took all this risk to get to this spot. You hoped you could get to this spot. Like now that you're here, exist in it and like make it better every day.
Yes.
But like, and leverage it, it's like, but there's times to rest, and we don't know what the world's going to look like in 12 months, and like, there are also no one to work at future restaurants. So I'm like, we have the ideal staff. I've basically handpicked the people I get to work with. So like you open another thing and now there's just so many variables, and the industry lost a lot of workers. And I think that it was good in a lot of ways. A lot of people that didn't want to be working those jobs left those jobs. A lot of people who didn't make money, who didn't actually want to be doing it, didn't have to, and so when I look at it, it's like this 2 sides of the coin. I'm like, man, if there were more people, we could open another thing. And I'm like, well, like if there aren't people, then you don't open it. You don't get to just open things that you want to.
You can't create
and make the people work these jobs. And I think that that's what the industry has learned so much of. Like we cater our hours to the employees we have. We cater how things work to the people that work there, because I think the industry realized how incredibly valuable they are, and it's a common restaurant thought to be like, everyone's expendable. Yeah, you could leave, I'll just fill your shoes. I was told that multiple
It might have been like
times.
that, maybe like that at one point. But
yeah,
now
I mean,
it's
there
like,
were just, it was because, you are hiring unskilled workers. You're like, oh, well, I'll have 10 applicants tomorrow, so like you
Right.
can leave. And I think that mentality just breeds uninspired employees.
And your turnover rate, like that's an unbelievable, like being in an industry with such a high turnover rate. And
and we've been, that's been, that to me, that's the testament to like, is this working? You can say we've got great culture. You can say all this stuff, and they do, and they talk about it in the magazines, and their staff turns over every month. So like, that's the testament. Do you keep your people? Do your people? Because ultimately, when people are like, someone came in here and gave me a business card for their other restaurant, like, how disrespectful is that? I'm like, if you want to work somewhere else, go work somewhere else. I'm not stopping you.
Right.
Come poach my people. That's fine. They work here because they want to, and they like it. And like, that's my responsibility
out there
to make them want to be here. Like, I'm not holding anyone against their will. If you can make more money at this place and the hours are better, then go work there. That's great. Fully supportive.
Yeah.
But that's not what most restaurants are like. It's this deeply offensive thing of, hey, here's my 2 weeks. And they're like, oh, well, we'll just fire you today. Don't even work your 2 weeks. That's common. It just happened to someone I know, and it's just like, yes, please come try to get the people that work at the restaurants to work other places. Cause like,
so you adjusted your hours. Like I've heard like that you pay your people very well. Like your people are like that. And then that's why like you're notoriously at a restaurant, like you're overworked and underpaid, like generally, like you were saying. So like taking pride in like, I'm getting rid of 7 shifts.
Yeah.
And like, so like you and your business partner had to sit down and like, that's the only way we can really keep this. Now you have to like look at like treating your employees, because like without them, like
you have nothing. And like, it's like everything we did was maximizing the hourly rate for the staff. That it's like, okay, if we can do X sales but we're open all this time, like how do we do the most sales in the shortest amount of time? People are like, well, why aren't you open on Sunday? I just need you to be open on Sunday. I'm like, do you work on Sunday? Well, no. Okay. New today. These are people with real lives,
families,
and like they work plenty hard. Like Sunday, no one wants to work on Sunday.
Day.
Nobody wants to work.
And so it's like, oh, well, I thought the kitchen was open until midnight. I'm like, but it's not, because that person right there is a real person, and they have been here since 2:00, and they don't want to work till midnight.
Yeah.
So sorry. There's places open till midnight. They're
go there.
Like, but
it's
like,
limited now though, because people realize it's
is.
very tough to get late night food in St. Louis.
Very tough.
It's
tough to get stuff on Monday. It's tough to get stuff on Tuesday.
It's so hard to get stuff on Monday, Tuesday.
And so it's like, and I feel it. I have times that I'm like, oh, let's go here. I'm like, oh gosh, they're not.
Really
they're only
wanted
open Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And I'm like, you know what? Good for them.
Yeah.
They probably like they have the
good
same
for them.
staff. They all work the same shifts.
Totally.
They all love each other.
Like,
They all hang
how
out.
the industry has to evolve, and like, who knows? We'll see what will happen. Maybe it'll be, people are like, oh, when's it gonna get back to normal? I'm like, I don't think back to normal is a good thing. I don't think how it was is better than how it is now.
Yeah.
It's more frustrating as a consumer, but like, we don't have the population of Chicago. This is St. Louis. And like, if you want stuff to be good and consistent, it can't be open all the time, And I think also people learned that like, we can't be the brunch spot and the dinner spot and the late night spot and the lunch spot and the happy hour spot. It's like, okay, well, like, do what you do well and let the brunch place crush. Because if we stopped doing lunch and the lunch places around us in the Central Center are busier, and like they need those sales, it's like, I think that distribution made the places busier when they need to be busy.
I think that's a great way to like shed light on the positivity of it, because I think a lot of people are really like, oh, I want it to be back to normal. And it's like, I love that you're shedding light on, no, this is working. Like, this is so much better, especially for the people who work in the industry. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, it's like unique to think about that, and just like the changes that you made for the good. Because now it's like, in my mind, like working 4 days a week, I get 3 days to spend with my family, or I'm off early. Like because you want to get off too. Yeah. You don't want to work Sunday, so why would you?
Nope.
And you're like working all these things in your business. Like it's inspiring to see the boss, also owner, co-owner, all that, like clean the dishes, bust the tables. Like you have to be able to do every part of your business, because who are you going to tell somebody else to do it if you've never done it yourself?
Right.
Clean the bathroom. Like I want the bathrooms to be clean because I want my bathrooms to be clean. But like if you walk in the bathroom and you see something's dirty, but you clean it on the way out, because that testament of because people see that. Like I've had bosses and managers before, and it's just like you you get mad. You almost want to do stuff to be petty to them. Like, oh, I'm not going to like do that because like he's a dick or whatever.
And it's so difficult because restaurant middle management is brutal. It's hard. It's impossible to hire for. It's difficult. It's like so you need to be more responsible and better than everyone else on the floor, but you're going to make half the amount of money. It's just the reality. You know, it's like you can serve and make $350 a night, or you can manage, work just as hard, work more hours, need to be able to coach these people, and you're not making the money. And so it's like the only, like, you find your gems, and it has to be filled in with the owner. And like, that's the only way it works for me, is that I'm like, okay, well, I'm never going to find someone who gives this many shits and ultimately like wants to work a management shift and feel like they're an underpaid babysitter.
Right.
So I think that like, it's why, you know, the pros and cons of like, okay, a front of house owned restaurant operates a lot differently than a chef owned restaurant. And it's like, I feel fortunate. I'm like, okay, well, I can help these things. And luckily at both spots, and like Ben at Yellowbelly, the chef there who's about to have the baby, is like the most talented, hardworking person maybe ever worked with. Like, inspiring to be around, the most humble, soft-spoken, brilliant dude. And like, I hire people and I'm like, hey, I'm the owner. That's your quarterback. What he tells you, you do, because the whole place revolves around this person right here. And like, he's the only person that I can't do their job. So he matters a lot, you know? And it's like, this is how this goes. Like, these people are in this position and they're empowered to do what they know how to do well. But it's sad how often, like, oh man, well, I'm just surprised that, you know, I have the autonomy to do these things.
Right.
Yes, chef.
Yes, chef.
Yeah.
Yes, chef.
That was a stress-inducing show.
Oh my gosh, I'm almost done with the last episode. I just watched.
I love the second last episode. Was amazing.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Well done.
Woo.
Yeah, that show is crazy.
So
That's like
good.
wonders. Like, I'm like, I am so glad I don't like. It makes it like it the accurate depictions of all that, but like also like his cousin and like, dude, I'm like, chill, dude.
Richie,
like, you gotta get the hell out of this place, bro.
Yeah, there were some
Negative.
times where I'm like, that guy needs to stop yelling, or I like can't watch the show.
I can't. I know.
This is a little too.
Always yelling about.
There's a little like PTSD though.
So if you could make a cocktail or have a cocktail with anyone ever,
oh yeah,
like, do you like, what is one person that like if they sat at your bar, you would like instantly drop what you were doing and go have a conversation with that person?
yeah. I mean, I think there are a few. I mean, I think like in reality, Joaquim Simo, who's a bartender and bar owner, and he owned Born Ribbons. It's now recently closed. On my honeymoon, we went there, and I was sitting at a table. I was like geeking out. I was like, Lauren, that's Joaquim Simo. Like, this is his bar. Like, I'm super inspired by this guy. And he ended up coming over, hanging out with us for an hour, having drinks, was an open book, was super, super helpful about opening the place, the challenges. When we opened Yellowbelly, I called him and bounced ideas off him. Just like,
That's awesome.
someone who was very busy, has a million contacts, and like
Still
took the
mentored
time to like answer a phone call and have a 45-minute conversation that to him, he didn't have to do that.
Right.
And so if he came in, I think about the people that if they sat down, I'd be nervous to make a drink for. And I think that that's a small number of people. But when people sit down and I'm like, okay, like I feel like the tenseness, I'm like, this means this is cool. This is a good reflection. And so I think I would be very excited to sit down and just like, and talk about like, so you closed your bar. What was that like? You know, what does that process look like? I mean, I think there are, you know, the people like Phil Knight and Barack Obama and people I'd be like, just talk, I'll listen.
Yeah.
I'd love to just
Whatever you want to
hear
tell me.
any story you have. But like also Tom Bullock is, you know, a pre-prohibition bartender who was, you know, who has a book that was, I mean, he's long dead, but like those stories of those pre-prohibition like bartenders, I think would be fascinating. You know, the recipes of the milk punch recipe is give them a bottle of bourbon, an empty glass, and a cold glass of milk, and allow them to mix. You know, it's like a different time, like a totally different time that I would, because I've drawn so much inspiration and just imagined what it was like. I think that it'd be incredible to hear someone say like, hey, this is what it was. This is actually what this was like.
Yeah.
That's cool. Like pre-prohibition. Is there any like cocktail bar that you haven't been to that you want to like say like I want to get a drink from, because you've been to like your not idol, but like one of your like idol, I guess. I don't know if people use that.
It's funny because it's almost like I don't order a lot of cocktails. when we travel, we order lots of cocktails. And for the longest time, it was like, I need to go here and I need to get this cocktail because like I have to know what these ingredients taste like. I have to see what this person is doing. And that is like, it's worn off in the sense that I think I just thought, okay, the New York scene, if I get a cocktail at a bar in New York, it's going to be so much better than a cocktail in St. Louis or a cocktail in LA. And I'm like, cocktails are cocktails. We use the same ingredients. And like, if you're smart and you know what you're doing, like they taste good. And I think that like so much of what I've been doing recently has been like business related, and that like, I still love cocktails. I love the creation of them, but I feel like that like mystique has kind of worn off a bit. It's like there's a tiki bar in Austin, tiki like Tatsuya, that like looks amazing. Like I'd love to go there and get cocktails. I'd love to go to, honestly, London would probably be where I'd go. There's a place like Taylor Elementary that's just like minimalist, no garnish. Like I think that what they're doing is just amazing. So I'd probably go to London and hit multiple places and be super inspired.
To bring stuff back home.
Yeah, I think that like in the world right now, London kind of has the best, like most forward.
She was just there. She studied abroad there.
Oh man, I would, and I mean I think the architecture of London is amazing.
It's so pretty. It's on my list of like must see. Like soon, gotta go see it. So do you get to do a lot of take a lot of trips?
No.
I was gonna say
I
you probably can't.
I'm working on that.
Yeah.
We're going to Tulum for a week in a couple weeks.
Nice.
Just you and your wife?
Yep, me and my wife. We're gonna leave the kiddo.
It's romantic.
Your first
I mean, the pictures.
Leaving him for a week.
We went to Oregon for a week.
Okay.
Kind of like things shut down, and we were like, we're going to a cabin in Oregon for a week. And we'll leave Anderson and Kansas City. So honestly, we went. I mean, we went to Portland. Everything was closed because of COVID. So really, my schedule had been so weekend loaded that, like, as we talked about it limits friendships, social interactions. It's incredibly limiting to never be available Friday or Saturday or Sunday for a long time. And so we're just now, starting that, like, okay, well, I mean, I'm flying to Massachusetts for 24 hours to get tattooed in a couple days that I was just like, I'm doing this. Like you're
starting to open up and like, be like, okay, I'm saying yes to this.
Yeah.
I'm doing this. Yeah. I'm getting like, you're like, oh, let's do it quicker, like to make these decisions.
And as soon as we, it's like, we love traveling, but it's like you have this kid and it just makes everything a lot more difficult. Yeah. And so we're almost at the stage where traveling with Anderson is going to be super fun. And so I think we're going to do a month in Italy next summer and try to like work from home situation there for at least a month and like start to do the things where it's like, okay, like, I don't know, I want to live overseas eventually.
Do you?
And so I think that like, it's like, okay, let's do a month overseas and like, what's it feel like? And like, could this be
our life
10, 15 years away? Is this possible?
Where would you go? Like if like down the line?
I mean, like, I'd love to be in Spain. I'd love to be in like the Basque region. I'd love to be, Australia would be attractive. I mean, I think Spain and France would be very, very attractive.
Is that something your wife's passionate about too? Or is
she's down.
Oh, you gotta be. He's like, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
Well, I just didn't know if it was more you or more her.
Like, there's always
especially
like over the last few weeks, it's been easier to be like, all right, America, this is not the trajectory I'm trying to be in. So what does a like long-term plan look like?
Yeah. Like, what is going on?
And like,
I'm ready to go.
it definitely like charges that up. And it's like, okay, well, like if we're gonna do this one day, like how do you take the baby steps to just like figure
You
it
do
out?
a long-term trip
you
and
know,
you like
and
try to work and
yeah, and like I never traveled as a kid ever. We went to Orlando, Florida for like 2 days once. And like I would love to be able to give Anderson the culture of like we're gonna live in Venice for 6 weeks and like we're gonna walk down and get our groceries and like this is what life is for so many other people. It's so different than what
something
what
you've
we're
never
used
seen
to.
before, something I've never
Yeah.
seen before, something you've never seen before.
Yeah.
And that's that's like inspiring to be able to give him those opportunities and like just be able to see, you have to see to what is it? I can be what I can see.
Yeah.
So if you can't see other people living different ways, then like you can't be that, so
Right.
being able to show him, because like there might be like he comes to your restaurant or something, he's probably like, I don't ever want to be in a restaurant like this, and that might be the case.
Yeah,
And I'm sure that you'd probably
let him work at a restaurant.
you'd probably be like, yes, that's
My dad used to say that to me whenever I was 16 and looking for my first job.
Yeah.
He's like, not the restaurant industry. And I was like, but
Yeah.
why?
I'd be
He's like,
just don't
just no.
get in it.
And I did. My first job, I
Yeah.
worked at like Texas Roadhouse as a
Yeah.
hostess. And I
Yes.
remember like just the drama and the relationships and other things. And I'm like, oh, I see why my dad
Yeah.
wanted to protect me
Oh
from
gosh,
this.
especially oh my gosh, yeah. If I had a daughter, I would feel very, very,
Oh,
very
yeah.
similarly,
Mm.
very
Do not work
similarly.
here. The shit that goes on back here.
No.
I'm like, look, I trust you. It's the other
It's
people. I
it's
trust.
everybody else. I figured it out pretty fast, so I didn't last too long. No, not for me. What else? Any other?
We end it with the STL bucket list. So,
Sure.
we like to talk to different people in St. Louis and kind of get their idea of an STL bucket list. So
Yeah.
let's just say you and the family, like what are a few spots? Like it's probably very rare that you get a full day where
On
you guys
your
can really just
Sunday.
do stuff.
You're off
Yeah.
Sunday,
Yeah,
Monday.
Sunday
So
we
what
do
do you guys
family
do?
day. We love brunch at Bowood. We do
I
that
just
pretty often.
went.
The blueberry pancakes are Anderson's favorite food,
Aw.
and then he eats them for like the next 4 days.
Yeah, because they're big.
Yeah. So if we're doing something that it's like he has to be super into the food, or else the experience is
Not as good.
usually pretty lame. And so much of the dining choices are driven by him. We love Pizza Champ a ton. I think that we love it. The chicken sandwich, the pizza, everything's awesome. If Lauren and I get a day, because she doesn't work on Fridays, and so there are times that we're like, all right, Friday we're gonna do it. We would get lunch at Union Loafers, and then probably dinner at either Indo or Louis, and that would be a pretty
Good day.
wonderful day. Maybe like grab a glass of wine at Olio before going to Indo. I feel like Louis is like the comfort, the happy place. And so I feel like it's that like trying new things is so rare just because I don't know, it's like you don't eat out a lot. Even if you have a good time at a new place, like I just want to go where like I know it's gonna be a certain way.
Yeah.
And honestly, like La Katrina on Southampton, like bangs.
Yeah,
Like those
so good.
fajitas,
Love
they have
it.
like this $22 like fajita platter that's like everything's cooked correctly.
Yeah.
And it's
Always.
awesome. Like
And it's
On
perfect
point.
for
for
two. We share
We
that.
share it.
We share that.
We
And then we
share
get a
it?
picture
Yeah.
and we get a picture and it's like $40, but like you
Totally.
get drunk and you get a good like you get
so
full
good.
and drunk.
And it's
for
so
$40.
much food. Like
Yeah.
we'll eat the three
And
of
you
us will
take
get
it-
and then we'll take it and eat it.
You
And,
just have to
like-
get extra tortillas and then you're good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I am so impressed with them. Also, La Manjanita on Cherokee. If you
Haven't been there yet.
Oh, so
Street tacos.
good. Tacos. I mean, it's this tiny little shop. They have these little like mini tortas
Mhm.
with this like slow roasted pork with pineapple dripping on it. Like so good.
That's
so
amazing.
good.
That's
So
amazing.
I think if we were just like making it. I mean, I think tacos and pizza are like kind of what I would eat
Yeah.
every day if I
You had it.
could,
Yeah.
had an
The choice.
perfect
yeah.
metabolism.
That's amazing. But you did mention Endo. Endo is insane.
I love it.
My
I
gosh,
love
I was
it.
They crush
very.
it.
We
Nick
went
Bogdan
there,
over there
and I was
crushes it.
so overwhelmed
The menu.
because I didn't like understand.
They're
what the
very good at
menu
explaining
said,
the menu
But
there.
they,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
telling you, like they told us everything and broke it down. And we're like, well, do you like this? Then yes, get this, or, you know, and that's, again, part of the experience.
I love how
like,
they brought
that's
it
what
out.
we need.
It was like plate after plate after plate after plate, like every like 5 minutes. And it was like,
Great.
I was like trying not to eat it in one bite because I'm like, it's so good. I want to like try to do it in 2 bites. But it's just
Cool.
interesting.
So
They do a lot of cool stuff over there. Like that whole like little corner right there is just a nice like.
It's awesome. Yeah, I mean, we don't eat a lot of bread normally, and so it's just like the perfect food.
Yeah.
For it's just like a protein rich
Yep.
diet. So
You mentioned Union Loafers and like you could get like a nice sandwich from there. Like their bread is
Yeah.
just unbelievable.
it is.
There's so many unbelievable restaurants and that helps everybody because when there's so much good food, there's so many options that people, because then like people stem off and create other concepts and like everybody's more open to trying stuff because everything's so good. So, well, man, Tim, I mean, that's all I got. So
We could just sit here and talk to you forever. Like, this was so cool to have you on here. So
Awesome.
thank you for
Thank you
taking the
guys so
time.
much.
yeah,
We appreciate it as an industry. Appreciate what you guys are doing, and to have a non like bias, like source that's truly just supportive.
Right.
It means a lot. It's usually has their own bent.
pay to
so-
play stuff. And,
Yeah,
yeah,
and that's
and
usually how it goes. And so don't stop what you're doing.
Thank you.
It helps a ton.
that means a lot because
Yeah.
like there are like opportunities where, like corporate will want to pay you, sponsors will want to get in here
Yeah.
and do it. And like we love working with the Regional Arts Commission of St. Louis because they said we don't want to change anything about what you're doing.
Mhm.
We just want to help you do cooler shit
It's awesome.
or do cooler
Yeah.
stuff with
Yeah.
a little bit of funding because like for the last 3 years we've used our time, money to go to these places.
Yeah.
Like people will of course offer us free meals every once in a while, but we're tipping way more when
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
the case.
Oh,
So it's like
always. Yeah.
we've spent a lot of time and money, but it's really rewarding to hear people like you say that. But the best thing is when people move here or go to school at WashU and they like send us a DM and be like, you like made my college experience
Yeah.
amazing because you give
Yeah.
us a broad set of options, not
Right.
just 10 places that pay,
Right.
because they're,
Yeah. No, I mean it is becoming a world where the local magazines are very pay to play. The couple the food critic in the city is mostly irrelevant, and you guys are you guys are unbiasedly just being like, this is what we like.
Yeah.
This is what we like, and this is what the people who comment like.
Mhm.
There's no one specific place we're trying to highlight more than the other.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it's appreciated.
Yeah.
It's like that sort of outlet is just hard to find.
Mhm.
It's
And
like
come on,
Other cities
tell
have
your
it. And that's what we
truth.
got inspired. We got inspired from other cities because we're like, dude, they have like independent and we don't even people it. Like, it's like we have other people that help us with content now. So it's like, if me and Risk go on a date night, like even if we maybe don't love it, we're never going to
Never bash anything.
we'll still post it, but we might not just be like Yellowbelly, like you've always been like Yellowbelly has
Just
always
love
been
it.
our
Yeah, we
favorite
just
spot.
love
We
it.
go there for like, I'm not lying. Like we go there. That's why it's so special that you're here because like you created a place where we go to celebrate the best things that happen in our
Wow.
life.
Like you were
Special.
saying, like
Birthdays,
when you go somewhere, like
graduations.
the time that you get, like you want to go where you know it's gonna be good,
Yeah.
like Yellowbelly.
Oh, we know that it's
Any of
slaps.
them. I mean,
We gotta shit. I wish they were open on Mondays. No, I'm just
That means a lot. It means a lot because it's funny, I don't hear like compliments often. I hear complaints.
Oh, yeah.
It's usually
Emails
it's like,
and
if
bullshit
everything is great,
beaters.
I don't hear anything. That's usually
that means
how
you're
it
doing good
goes.
though when
Yeah,
you don't hear anything.
exactly.
But yeah.
DMs, because I didn't know you did social. That's so cool. I'm so happy that I know that now because it's like really cool that you do that. That's why you never reshare my stuff until like really late because you'll get on there all at once and like reshare a bunch of stuff.
Like everybody's
that's what I was gonna
stuff.
say. Is all
Sometimes they're pretty quick. You're pretty quick because I would be like, see you, and then I would like post a story, and then like you would go back in the kitchen, like you'd reshare
Yep.
real quick. Like, it's so Instagram's so weird because you're like, I
is.
just talked to them, but then now I'm just like sharing like something that they posted or like whatever. But yeah, thank you for coming on and
Thank you guys so much.
shout out to Half Coast, Matt. Thank you for producing an episode. Haley
much.
here taking photos so that we can continue to elevate our brand because the same way you do with yours is like we want to have the best looking content. So we love having a photographer in here and the Regional Arts Commission of St. Louis, our proud sponsor, allowing us to do what we do to show you guys that why St. Louis is an arts town. People come here for sports, but more people travel to St. Louis to go to the big art institutes like the Fox, the Muni, and everything else great happening in St. Louis. So if you guys want more information on that, we'll link everything for Tim. And other than that, you can say some final things about how people can support you, or just.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that I'd more than anything just want to thank St. Louis for being what it is, and we feel unbelievably supported, and like opening a small business and with not really any connections for real. It's like you mentioned Kevin from Forehand. It's like the people I think of that were just immediately reached out and were helpful and gracious, and the community is great, and people understand that as you said, like good places make the good places better, and busier, and it's like we want more of these high quality places. And I just would thank you to the restaurant industry, thank you to my wife mostly, more than anything, and the employees that we have are just the most amazing people ever. So thank you guys.
Appreciate it.